Here are 3 things that I learned about breastfeeding my second child that I wish I knew with my first. The first, cluster feeding. You can read about cluster feeding all you want, but nothing prepares you more for it than actually going through it yourself. Cluster feeding is a way for your baby to help increase your milk supply and can happen as often as every 45 minutes. With my first, I used to get so stressed out because I thought that this meant that my little one wasn't getting enough milk, but actually cluster feeding was just in effect. After understanding that it's just nature's way of ensuring that your baby is getting enough milk by increasing your milk supply, breastfeeding my second one became much more mentally easier, even though it was still very physically draining. This brings me to my second thing that I wish I knew. How often should a baby feed? You will read information all over the internet and get advice from all different types of people, such as even your physicians or other mothers, that your baby should be feeding X amount of time for X amount of duration. However, with breastfed babies, this isn't always the case. Breastfed babies should be put to your breast and they should be allowed to eat as often as they want and eat as long as they need to. As long as they are producing enough dirty diapers a day and steadily gaining weight, then you know they are getting sufficient amount of milk. With my first, I just wish that someone would have normalized this, that having them on your breast all day, especially in the early days, is completely normal, and some days they will eat more, or sometimes they would eat less, and this is all part of their normal growth. The third thing that I only learned with my second that I wish I knew with my first was that if you are pumping milk, output is not equal to what they are consuming. There is lots of great advice out there that tells you that you should be pumping to help increase your milk supply. However, that is what cluster feeding is for. With my first, even in the early days when I was pumping to help increase milk supply, I was only able to pump an ounce here or there, and it made me very concerned because I was afraid that he wasn't getting enough milk. However, what I learned is your baby's mouth is actually more efficient than a pump. I say this because even if your pump is only able to remove an X amount of milk, it doesn't mean that this is what your baby is actually consuming. Especially after your milk has already done regulating, whatever output is produced by your body is exactly what your baby needs. So if your baby has already fed and then they typically feed every 2 hours and you decide, okay, after an hour I'm going to pump to see what milk I can extract. If you get nothing, that's completely normal because that's outside of what your body is normally trying to produce for your baby. I used to stress about this so much because I thought it meant that I had low production, because I would see other moms able to pump 3 ounces per boob where I couldn't even get 1 ounce per boob. If I knew all of this information with my first, it would have made breastfeeding so much more easier. I hope this information is helpful for you. Comment below on what you learned during your breastfeeding journey.